All right, what is up, Utah fans? This is Joseph back with the Utah Utes Football Digest. And Utah just took a pretty decent hit. Utah tight end Carson Ryan is transferring out of Utah and heading to the team down south, Provo State, BYU. Pretty tough hit for Utah. I want to dive in, talk about what the expectations were for Carson Ryan when he came into Utah last year, and then also look at what we actually saw from Carson Ryan, right? In a very rough offense where we did not capitalize on most of our opportunities. So, there's a lot to look at here. I'm excited to dive into it, kind of give BYU fans an idea of what they're getting, but also give Utah fans an idea of what we're losing. Before we dive into it, guys, please smash that like button. Also, comment down below. I want to hear what you guys are thinking. Is losing Carson Ryan, is it a big hit? Are you indifferent? Are you, I just want, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We put out a ton of Utah Utes football content. So if you're into that sort of thing, this is the place for you. And I'd love for you to stick around. Finally, we are a part of the 1012 network. 1012 network sponsored by Charlie Hustle. You can see the clothes there. Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh. Use code 101215 at checkout for 15% off any non-sale items. Seriously, guys, great products. Really check them out. Really good stuff. If they ever want to send me any more free stuff, feel free. Again, that's Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh, charliehustle.com, 101215 for 15% off any non-sale items. And on that note, let's go ahead and dive in and check out Carson Ryan leaving Utah. Okay, guys, and here is the career stats of Carson Ryan: 6'4", 256 pounds, very athletic, very talented tight end. Sad to see him go. But I do want to take a real look at what Carson Ryan has been able to do. 10 receptions, 113 yards last year for one touchdown. And you look here, guys, it's just, this is what I talked about when Carson Ryan came to Utah. It kind of just felt like it was never able to get going with Carson Ryan, right? 13 catches in 2023, 10 catches in 2022, or 6 catches in 2022. He was just never able to put together a great tight end season, right? At least statistically. Now, there's more to playing tight end. In a minute, we'll break down the PFF grades because there is more to playing tight end than just the stats. But you look here in his career, it's 29 catches for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's not exactly a superstar stat line. And I was one of the most excited people when Carson Ryan announced that he was coming to Utah. Because in a second, we'll look at his PFF grades and we'll talk a little more about him. But you look at the numbers, guys, it feels like Carson Ryan is starting to become that story of what could have been. What you wish he was and what you wish was happening on the field. Because when you look at these stats, they don't line up with the player that you know he could be. Now, I think at both spots, UCLA and Utah, at least UCLA in 2023, he was not in a good quarterback situation, right? In 2023 at UCLA, not a great quarterback situation. 2024 at Utah, not a great quarterback situation, right? Actually, pretty terrible at Utah last year. So he was in a situation where he wasn't able to, and the team wasn't able to capitalize on his talents. But you are starting to see a trend where great players, even good players, can overcome their situation. And we're starting to see multiple years where Carson Ryan is not overcoming his situation. Again, I think he has a ton of potential, but 3 years in a row where his stats haven't quite lived up to the excitement that you associate the name Carson Ryan with. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the PFF grades, guys. And here he is, Carson Ryan, 6'4", 256 pounds. This is what he did last year. You can see definitely some up and down with some elite graded games like the Utah State game against, lower talent, their G5. But then also some lower end games in the 50s. And guys, I mean, you look at the numbers, like I said, Utah's quarterback situation last year was terrible. But you look at the numbers, 310 snaps, and the guy got 100 receiving yards, 111 or something like that, right? It's It's not where you'd want that to be. Yeah, 113 receiving yards. It's not where you'd want that to be for 310 snaps. It's not like he didn't see the field. It's just, it hasn't quite clicked. And then you go down here for the overall PFF grades. His run blocking went down each year, right? With the sample size, at UCLA in 2022 just looks like a monster on a very limited number of snaps. 2023 still looks very good on a high number of snaps. And then 2024, on a high number of snaps as well, doesn't perform great. It's just slightly below average. I still have faith Carson Ryan could, reconcile his career and show up as a big time player that we know he can be. But I do think this gives you guys some context of what we're losing. Is it a great player? No. Is it a terrible player? I'd say no. I don't think he's a bad player. What I think we're losing is a guy with a lot of potential. I'm going to give my final thoughts here in a second. But that's kind of all the data we'll have for Carson Ryan right there. Okay, guys, final thoughts on Carson Ryan. I think Carson Ryan still has a ton of potential, as I've mentioned multiple times throughout the video. But the truth is, it just hasn't happened for him yet. And I think what might have happened at the end of the day is Carson Ryan wanted to continue getting paid, because I'm guessing Utah probably had to pay him a decent amount to get him out here because of his potential. He was pretty sought after when he actually came to Utah. But now it's like, hey, okay, you got 310 snaps last year, 113 receiving yards, one touchdown. Now, um, we are not going to pay you a bunch of money. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. I think that's probably what happened. And BYU said, hey, we want you. We're willing to take the risk on you. Come over to BYU, come over to Provo State, come over to the team down south, and we will give you a nice payday. This is my guess of what really happened here. And, it's good for everyone involved. I don't think it would have been a good idea for Utah to pay him a lot of money. I don't know the behind the scenes. I don't know for sure that he was offered a bunch of money or anything like that. But I think Utah is, looking like a very exciting offense this year. So I think apples to apples, there's no reason for him to just leave Utah. So I think it makes sense that maybe it was a money factor. And I'm sorry to see him go. I would honestly love for Carson Ryan to stay on the roster this year, but I also don't think it's a big problem that he's gone. I don't think those shoes of how he performed last year are going to be super difficult to fill. So that's my thoughts. Smash the like button before we get out of here, guys. Also, comment down below. What are you guys thinking? Obviously, like I mentioned, I would have loved for him to stay at Utah. So BYU, Provo State is getting a very solid player in Carson Ryan with a ton of potential. So let me know your thoughts, whether you're a BYU fan or a Utah fan. I want to know what you're thinking. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, we put out a ton of Utah Utes football content. So if you're into that sort of thing, stay along for the ride. I'm out of here. Go Utes.